Mark, can you tell me what happened here in 1999?
Basically, a guy called David Copeland, who was the London nail bomb London nail bomber, went into the bar about 5 o'clock and dropped a nail bomb off in the middle of the bar. He went in, brought a tin of Coke, sat down, chatted to people, and then made his excuses and left the bomb to go off. And I think it went off about 6:30. The 3 people were killed, and there was about 100 people who were victims within the bar. So I think about 2 people lost legs, some people lost eyes and other limbs as well.
You were a regular of this bar, I understand.
Yeah, I used to drink in here every week. My boyfriend worked in the bar across the road, but I was lucky on this night because I was working at Selfridges at the time, so I was very lucky not to be in the area on that night, although I did come down afterwards because I've done a lot of work with the local police, so I caught up with a friend of mine, came down and saw how everything was playing out really.
Even for 99, this was an extreme event, this type of homophobic violence. But how would you describe the atmosphere and social attitudes towards gay people in those years?
Well, the attitudes actually weren't that bad back then. I mean, Soho was a thriving community. I mean, on that day, it was a bank holiday weekend. Everybody was out to have fun. There was a sense of excitement in the area. I mean, I've been coming to this area for about 25 years, and it's always been a fun, happy-go-lucky sort of area. You don't actually get that many homophobic attacks in the area. Those sort of attacks tend to happen elsewhere, sort of away from the areas where we're known and accepted, really.
Yeah. But this was also the start of New Labour. That meant a lot of change as well for you.
It was. There was a lot of people were sort of very happy that Labour had got in. We'd had a long period of the Conservative government leading up to that, who had brought in Section 28, which had been a very oppressive law. So with New Labour coming in, we really thought that the country was moving rapidly towards change. That Section 28 would be over-repealed. We were looking forward to the age of consent coming down because there was legislation going through Parliament at the time as well, and sort of big campaigns for the age of consent, also for equal rights within the armed services as well. That all followed through in the years that followed as well.
Is it fair to say that up till that time, the UK was far more conservative when it's about social attitudes towards homosexuality compared to a lot of the other Northwest European countries?
I think it was because of Margaret Thatcher was very conservative. So yes, I think the country was more conservative then. But I think there's always been an undercurrent of people. We've always had a sort of belief in freedom and sort of tolerance and understanding really in this country. I think, and that comes from the people who fought in the wars for our freedoms, and I think we've always valued our freedoms, and freedom of speech is a fundamental sort of right in this country that we are really behind.
Now, we're going to have same-sex marriage. We're going to see the first ones on Saturday.
Yeah.
That's quite a dramatic change still if you look back at fairly recent history.
It is, but it's been it sounds like a recent history, but people have been campaigning for equal rights for a long period of time, and and a lot longer than we realise. When you had the original changes in law so that gay men could meet behind closed doors as long as it was just 2 people and it was a locked private room. We have moved a long way from, I think it was the Wolfenden report, so we have moved forward quite dramatically, but it has been a sort of a slow process of many ups and downs of, I mean, there was times when we had the sort of lesbian sort of, I forgot what it's called, when they stormed the BBC, and that was over Section 28. So people are very passionate about their rights, and I think we've always been a country where we believe in the right for people to sort of demonstrate and stand up for their beliefs. So, and people have always done that passionately. If you look throughout all our history.
You mentioned Section 28 and the Thatcher era.
Yeah.
What does it tell you now that this conservative government is actually the government that adopted a same-sex marriage?
I think I'm pleased that they've accepted same-sex marriage, but all the groundwork was done in the years beforehand. So for laws to change, it takes many years of committees, of campaigns, of meetings, bringing like-minded people together. So I think to credit one government is unfair, and I think we have to look that it was cross-party political consensus that actually brought these changes around. So it's people on both sides of the House and definitely, the people on the street, the real campaigners, and a lot of them are unsung heroes, really, who did the day-to-day sort of battling, coming out to families. We had big campaigns where we were talking about how important it is to come out to your family and friends and to win them over first as the first step to actually then winning over the wider community. And so by those initial campaigns of people coming out to their family and friends, that's helped educate sort of the wider population, and then they've spread that information on further afield, which is now, and I think the step of having civil marriages helped us, because in the sense that when all those civil marriages started happening and the straight families started having their gay children getting married, that started to educate an even wider group of people. And obviously whenever you have a marriage, you have a lot of people go along, 200 to 300 guests, and all those people take part in that ceremony, and then they actually realise what it's all about. It's not about the sex that happens in the bedroom, it's about the love that takes place within the relationship and within not just the two people getting married, but within the family, their extended family, and the people they work with. So it's winning that acceptance over, and that's where we've come from and where we're heading to.
Yeah, but it does mean you've won over the acceptance with even the Conservative Party. Even that's the party you would have least expected it of.
Yeah, we have. I'm pleased to say that. I think with the majority of them, but I think we've always got to be on guard, because as we see what's happening around in other places around the world, things can change very quickly and very dramatically. Leaders can be overthrown. There can be uprisings. If you look at what's happened in Egypt, there can be. Even the recent changes in Russia, where Russia has introduced these new anti-gay laws and is really terrorising its own LGBT population.
Like Section 28 in Russia, isn't it?
It's worse than Section 28, because with Section 28, the government of the day was just trying to stop the education about homosexuality within the schools, within schools. Whereas what's happening in Russia is actually trying to dictate what people do in the privacy of their own homes, and to the extent of what happens within families, calling on Russians to speak out against the gay relationships. Same thing with what's happening in Uganda as well. And I think we need to take a step back and say, well, where is this stuff coming from? And again, I think looking at the sort of Christian doctrines that are being forced through, are coming through, that's a big influence of what happens. And if we take this back to David Copeland, what material was he reading? He was reading things like the Turner Diaries. He was also reading a lot of literature that was coming from the Christian groups from the States, and that was his influence to go out, and what he hoped to do was spark a race war by planting bombs and creating fear. And I think we need to be really challenging those doctrines that are out there.
But if you only look at the UK, could you say same-sex marriage, that's probably the last biggest legal hurdle you've taken now?
It's the last big one for now, but there will be other things to follow, in the sense of it's making sure that human beings are equal at every level. And that's what we really want to win over. It's not just about gay and straight. It's about black and white, and all creeds and colours and cultures all having an equal stake in society and being accepted and celebrated in society. It's not about tolerance at all. I think tolerance is sometimes a dirty word. We need to find new words on how we involve and include everybody as human beings. And also people of faith as well, making sure that it's realising that someone said to me the other day that humanity is not just a secular thing. It's a thing for all of us to incorporate.
The fight is never over.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.